Niin, tervetuloa. Welcome everybody to Aino Day, Aino Kallaksen nimipäivät, eli Ainon päivän tilaisuuteen, to the name day of Aino. That's very important in Finland. We are really celebrating name days and having cake and everything. And Finnish PEN was founded in 1928 by Aino Kallas. And not the original PEN, it was founded 5 years before, or 21 by John Galsworthy in England. And we have a tradition, as you know, many of you have been in PEN events before. And you know that ever since Lin Xiaobo was awarded of a Nobel, and he couldn't go and get it from Oslo because he was in prison in China. He died in prison. Well, anyway, there was an empty chair in the ceremony in Oslo. So always in PEN events, we always have an empty chair. So there's somebody who is actually, if the person is alive, sitting here. This time he's not alive. Empty chair of this event is Armand Soldin, journalist of AFP, Agence France Presse, who died yesterday in Ukraine, in the Ukrainian front. So anyway, in spirit, he will be joining the discussion. And first we have a couple of minutes in Finnish, because they have written or edited a book in Finnish. So try to be polite anyway, but this is about Aino Kallas or Otto Manninen. Actually, they will explain that later, but yes, you can speak Finnish, of course. And after them, there will be Andrei Grišin and Kronidova from Russia with me, and soon after that, Lesja Kultšinska, from Ukraine. And after that, we will raise a toast with Marita Muukkonen and Ivor Stodolski for Artists at Risk work in general. This speaking program won't be much more than 1 hour, maybe a bit less, because this is also streamed and nobody wants to see 2-hour streams. So we are being kind. But we are staying here having wine at least until 7, so don't escape anywhere. And you can, of course, discuss with the authors and artists afterwards. Okay, I put Armand's chair a bit more nicely, but please.
Tervehdys kaikille Aino Kallas seuran puolesta. Mun nimi on Silja Vuorikuru ja mä oon Aino Kallas seuran hallituksen jäsen. Aino Kallas seura on toiminut vuodesta 2006 asti ja me ollaan kaikissa meidän tilaisuuksissa nostettu esiin myös muita kirjailijoita, jotka tavalla tai toisella liittyy Aino Kallakseen. Ja tänään aiheena on yksi heistä, eli Otto Manninen. Mä annan puheenvuoron kirjallisuuden tutkijoille Hanna Karhulle ja Tellervo Krogerukselle.
Kiitos paljon Silja ja kiitos paljon Aino Kallas seura ja Suomen PEN tästä mahdollisuudesta tulla puhumaan tästä ensimmäisestä Otto Mannis-elämäkerrasta, joka siis käsittelee tämmöistä suurta suomalaista runoilijaa ja kääntäjää. We are going to talk today in Finnish, but shortly I will explain that we are going to talk about the first biography of a poet and translator, Otto Manninen. Kirjan on kustantanut Ntamo, ja tämä on aika mielenkiintoinen elämäkerta-hanke siinä mielessä, että tämä kirja varsinaisesti kirjoitettiin yli 50 vuotta sitten, mutta se jäi kesken ja tekijä Pentti Lyly pyrki sitten jatkamaan tätä prosessiaan, mutta hän ei saanut sitä koskaan valmiiksi. Ja me nyt sitten Tellervon kanssa olemme tarttuneet tähän julkaisemattomaan käsikirjoitukseen, joka on suomalaisen kirjallisuuden seuran arkistossa ja sitten pyrkineet lukijoille muokkaamaan tämmöisen kompaktimman näkemyksen nuoren Otto Mannisen elämästä kuin mikä se alkuperäinen oli. Alkuperäinen oli noin 800 liuskaa pitkä ja tosiaan siinäkin vaiheessa vielä keskeneräinen. Joitakuita voi ihmetyttää se, että miksi olemme nyt täällä puhumassa tämmöisestä symbolististen runojen kirjoittajasta ja Iilian ja Odysseian kääntäjästä, mutta Otto Manninen sopii monella lailla tämän päivän teemaan. Otto Manninen oli itse asiassa ensimmäinen PENin puheenjohtaja vuonna 1928. Otto Manninen was the first chair of the Finnish PEN in 1928. Ja hän toimi myös johtokunnan jäsenenä aina vuoteen 1932 asti. Pentti Lyly kirjoittaa tässä elämäkerrassaan, että tämä eettinen komponentti oli itse asiassa aina kuulunut Mannisen luonteeseen. Ja Manninen oli jo nuorena opiskelijana taistellut monella lailla epäoikeudenmukaisuutta vastaan, ja hän oli hyvin aktiivisesti keräämässä nimiä suureen adressiin 1899. Samoihin aikoihin tämän suuren adressin nimikeräystalkoiden kanssa niin Manninen järjesti myös Savon Kangasniemessä, josta hän oli kotoisin, tämmöisen kansalaiskokouksen, jossa hän puhui passiivisen vastarinnan tärkeydestä. Ja kuten Silja tässä jo sanoi, niin tosiaan Otto Manninen liittyy vahvasti myös Aino Kallakseen. He olivat hyviä ystäviä ja Otto Manninen toimi Aino Kallaksen runokokoelmien ateljeekriitikkona. Ja on säilynyt esimerkiksi kirjeenvaihtoa, jossa Otto Manninen kannustaa Aino Kallasta vielä vähän harkitsemaan ja hiomaan niitä runojaan, jottei Aino Kallakselle kävisi niin surkeasti kuin hänelle itselleen, kun Manninen itse julkaisi esikoiskokoelmansa ja koki, että se oli niin kuin raakileena julkaistu. Ja Manninen ja Kallas olivat todella perheystäviä ja myös Mannisen vaimo, kääntäjä ja kirjailija Anni Svaan oli myös Aino Kallaksen hyvä ystävä. Ja ensivaikutelmasta, jonka Manninen sai Kallaksessa aikaan, on säilynyt tietoja. Kallaksen mukaan Mannisen älykkyyden leimaa lisäsi tämän otsa, joka oli kuin valtaisa hengenahjo. Ja nyt voisinkin antaa sitten puheenvuoron Tellervolle, työtoverille, kenen kanssa tämä toimitusprosessi on tehty. Haluaisitko Tellervo avata lisää siitä, että mitä uutta tämä elämäkerta tuo Otto Mannisesta lukijoiden tietoisuuteen?
Kiitos. Kiitos ja kiitos. Tämä ilmeisesti. Kiitos, että saimme tulla tänne kertomaan suuresta ja hyvin mieluisasta urakastamme. Oli jossain määrin epätoivoinen ajatus alun perin lähteä tarjoamaan kustantajille tämmöistä kirjahanketta, että meillä olisi tämmöinen aikomuksena lyhentää 800 sivuisesta ja kesken jääneestä ja jossain määrin ajasta jälkeen jääneestä käsikirjoituksesta. Sillä kyllähän kieli ja tapa lähestyä kirjallisuutta, tutkia ihmisten elämää, kyllähän se muuttuu vuosikymmenien varrella. Mutta sitä iloisempia olemme myös siitä, että sitten löytyi kustantaja, joka näki tässä kulttuuriteon eikä epätoivoista yritystä. Ja tässä ollaan. Tämän kirjalla on kyllä paljonkin annettavaa, vaikka se on kirjoitettu, niin siis sitä on kirjoitettu 50-luvulta 70-luvun alkuvuosille. Ja 2 kertaan tämän sisään sijoittuva Pentti Lylyn väitöskirjatyö myöskin sai painatusluvan jo yliopistolta, mutta koskaan se ei kuitenkaan niin pitkälle valmistunut. Nimittäin ensinnäkin yksi koko tämän meidän toimitustyön tavoite oli paitsi nostaa esiin tämmöinen unohtunut arvokas tutkijan elämäntyö arkistojen uumenista, niin nostaa näkyviin Otto Manninen, joka oli merkillisellä tavalla jäänyt niin kuin varjoon tai paitsioon niin tutkimuksen kuin muutenkin runouden ja kirjallisuuden harrastuksen piirissä. Meidän pienessä kirjallisessa elämässä on aika vahva sellainen perinne ollut, että jos tiedetään, että joku tutkii jotakuta kirjailijaa, tai tämä oli ennen näin, nyt on vähän toisin. Jos tiedettiin, että joku tutkii jotakuta kirjailijaa, niin juuri häntä ei sitten muut lähteneet. Se oli niin kuin yhden tutkijan reviiri. Ja tämä Mannisen aineisto oli sitten 50-luvun alkupuolelta 70-luvun puoliväliin. Se oli Pentti Lylyn omaisuutta. Ja se oli aika kohtalokas viivästys, koska kirjallisuuden tutkimuksen menetelmät ja näkökulmat ja kaikki siinä, niin ne oli ehtinyt kehittyä. Ja tämä saattoi tuntua vanhentuneelta, mutta elämäkerta, siis kertomus ihmisen elämästä, sehän ei sinänsä vanhene. Ja sitten Pentti Lyly oli tehnyt hyvin arvokasta taustatyötä paljon haastattelemalla aikalaisia, joita sittemmin kukaan ei ole enää voinut tavoittaa. Ja sitten keräämällä valtavan dokumenttimateriaalin, kirjeitä ja muuta kaikkea. Että hän on koonnut paljon tietoa, jota ei enää pystyttäisi tavoittamaan. Ja sitten olin sanomassa jotakin, joka uhkaa nyt karata mielestä, mutta hän on tavoittanut siis paljonkin sellaista ajankuvaa ja henkilösuhteita, joista toki on jo tiedetty paljonkin, mutta joihin tulee uusia vivahteita ja uusia yksityiskohtia. Aivan erityisesti Eino Leinoon. Tietysti Anni Svahn, joka on aivan keskeisessä roolissa tässä kirjassa, koska Pentti Lylyn se koko tämä hänen tapansa tulkita Otto Mannisen runoutta, sehän on ymmärrettävästi vahvasti elämäkerrallinen. Niin tämä Mannisen ja Anni Svahnin rakkaussuhde, joka orasti jo kouluvuosilta ja sitten paljon myöhemmin johti avioliittoon, niin se kulkee punaisena lankana paitsi elämäntarinassa, niin myös runojen tulkinnassa. Mutta Anni Svahn on yksi, mutta Eino Leino on toinen. Ja voi sanoa, että Manninen on jäänyt harmillisesti Eino Leinon varjoon sittemmin suomalaisella Parnassolla. Leinosta on tullut niin kuin päätähti, joka jättää muita varjoonsa. Kuitenkin Mannisen runous on osoittautunut tavattoman kestäväksi, niin että ei ole koskaan myöhäistä nostaa näkyviin hänen runouttaan. Ja me on tässä toimitustyössä toimittukin niin, että me on tuotu, käsikirjoituksessa ei ollut näitä runoja, joita siinä analysoidaan. Pentti Lyly ilmeisesti oletti, että kyllähän lukijat Otto Mannisen tuotannon tuntevat. Mutta me on nostettu ne runot, jotka ovat mukana tässä analyysiosassa, niin sitten kokonaisuudessaan luettavaksi myös tästä elämäkerrasta. Sen sijaan sitten tätä kääntäjän valtavaa elämäntyötä, niin sitäkin Pentti Lyly käsittelee aika perusteellisesti esimerkiksi Runeberg-suomennosten osalta. Mutta sitten niin kuin käännöshistoriallisiin erikoiskysymyksiin niin emme menneet niin kuin Pentti Lyly on tehnyt, vaan esimerkiksi niistä on leikattu. Mutta haluaisitko sä, Hanna, sanoa jotain tähän?
Joo, meille tuossa näytettiin, että kohta olisi aika lopettaa, niin käykö, että sanon pari sanaa vielä? Joo, kiitos. Eli nämä oli hienoja, tärkeitä pointteja, mitä toit just tämä kääntäjyys ja runoilijuus. Eli tämä elämäkerta tosiaan kertoo, että miten Otto Mannisesta kasvoi merkittävä suomalainen kääntäjä ja runoilija ja suomen kielen esitaistelija, sanoisinko näin, että se tässä nykypäivässä toisinaan unohtuu, että miten mieletöntä on se, että suomen kieltä voi käyttää niin, kun sitä tänä päivänä käytämme. Ja tämä Otto Mannisen sukupolvi on ollut merkittävässä roolissa tässäkin työssä. Ja sitten kirja tietysti myös tätä Mannisen kotiseutua ja hänen suhdettaan siihen avaa ja miltä tuntui olla niin kuin maalta kotoisin oleva opiskelija Helsingissä. Jos on kiinnostunut näistä Otto Mannisen ja Aino Kallaksen välisestä yhteistyöstä, niin tämä kirja tuo tietyn näkökulman siihen, mutta haluaisin mainostaa ja mainita vielä Silja Vuorikurun kirjoittaman Aino Kallas elämäkerran Maailman sydämessä, jossa tätä asiaa käsitellään sitten myös Aino Kallaksen näkökulmasta. Mutta mä luulisin, että meillä on pikkuhiljaa pitää ruveta lopettamaan, mutta haluan nyt mainita, että tätä kirjaa, jossa on myös aivan upea kuvitus, koska siellä on Otto Mannisen itsensä ottamia niin kuin taidevalokuvan tasoisia valokuvia, niin tätä hienoa teosta saa sitten ostettua joko Ntamon verkkokaupasta tai sitten tuolta Jarkolta, nostatko Jarkko kättä tuolla takana, niin myös häneltä tämän tilaisuuden jälkeen. Mutta kiitos paljon, että saimme tulla tänne.
Joo, mä täydennän tai kiitän vielä Hannaa siitä, että hän nosti esiin Mannisen niin kuin kielen runoilijana. Ja siinä mielessä hän on myöskin suomalaisen modernismin edelläkävijä, niin kurinalaista runoutta, niin kuin muodollisesti kurinalaista runoutta kuin hän kirjoittikin. Hän oli kieltä luova runoilija.
Kiitos.
So, the other mic is better. The other mic. This one is better. Okay. I'm so loud. I can be shouting here. I think it's a bit. Okay. So, tervetuloa kaikki edelleen. Welcome everybody to Aino Day celebration to Aino Kallas, and I still, because some people just came, I will tell that the PEN empty chair is Arman Soldin, who was killed yesterday in a missile attack. He was a journalist of AFP, French origin, but last week there was a Ukrainian fixer who died in a sniper's bullet, and then an Italian journalist injured. So there are journalists killed all the time and injured, but of course they are, I'm not saying they are the most important ones. Of course it's terrible when whoever dies, but this is what PEN has to see, that they were dying when they were working, they were doing their duty. Okay, so anyway, you guys are from Russia, and now we have been discussing with you many times already, like how you came and you left early on, but say just something briefly. Anis, you can begin. How did you feel when the war, the latest part of the war, the attack to Ukraine started in Russia? Were you aware of what was happening? Did you watch the news or something?
Hello. Yes, it's still terrible, actually. I'm pretty upset, and it happened in a place called Boyarsky Palaty in Moscow, and we had a show there. It was very depressing to our actor, who disappeared completely. Then he came back, and we wanted to cancel it. And before, there was the rehearsal of the show of Evgeny Berkovich, the director who is now sentenced in jail. This play, The Finished Fair Falcon, was just before that. And it was just in that place, because it's like a good place. It was a good place for theater and for very modern and actual plays, and we had one of them. We had premiere. We played it. Actually, it is now. It's not going. It was about Iuda Iskariot by Leonid Andreev.
Sorry, let's define before you. No, you can continue. But you work in the field of theater as a stage director. Set designer, and you design clothes.
Set
and
design and costume design.
Yeah, costumes and everything. And you have been working together with your husband, who's also in the field of theater as a director. But Anis Kronidova, you knew that something is going to happen, or you had the bad feeling, but did you expect
actually we all had very bad feeling from 2014, and I had personally, let's call it a depression, in half of a year before it started. It was really gloomy, the atmosphere.
Your theater has been very famous of its very artistic and direct approach in contemporary plays. Were you thinking more about the war in Ukraine or something? Everybody, I think, has relatives or something in Ukraine. Or did you just watch what was going on inside Russia? You lived in St. Petersburg. I mean, before the attack started.
Yes, we had many contacts with our Ukraine friends and colleagues. We worked a lot with Dach daughters and many others, and we had to cancel many projects since 2014. Especially my husband, Pavel Semchenko, from Ahia Theater.
Okay, then a few words with Andrei. Now, Andrei, you are a journalist, and you were following politics all the time, and you might not have been that surprised about the latest part of the war, but what did you think?
No, I didn't believe that the decision will be so, and this crazy Putin will start the war. I was in Magadan this day. It was 12 p.m. Because of the different of the time with Moscow, and that was like you can't breathe because you see like Russian tanks, they go through the borders, and that was really terrible. But then we started, I have my own independent media, and we started to write about that. And we try to do that all the time, and even now, unfortunately, now it is not so easy to do that. For example, now I have a criminal case in Russia because of fakes about
So I mean,
Russian army.
does it mean that you are about to be prosecuted, or would you be detained by the police if you went back? Or
Yes, if I will come back, I will be arrested on the border. And this case, the punishment is nearly 10-15 years in prison. It calls fakes about Russian army because we just try to tell truth about this war. So that is the reality, and now a lot of people who are against the war, they can be imprisoned, they can be sentenced, and we see the case of Evgenia Berkovich, and today Russian poet in Moscow, Ruslan Dayneko. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison because he just read anti-war poetry, and that is crazy.
And Ivan Safronov was also sentenced to how many years do you remember?
Ivan Safronov,
20?
Yes, 19 or 20 years, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned this journalist, because last time we had an event, Ivan Safronov was the empty chair. He was here with us. But one thing for the both of you is that now we know how the war has been proceeding until today, at least, something like that. But one thing which puzzles people, especially here in Finland, is that do the people understand in Russia what is going on? Do they understand? Because you are a journalist and you have been making really hard expressing contemporary theater. But anyway, sort of normal people, could we expect that there will be some kind of mutiny and they will say that enough, we are not doing this anymore? If Anis, would you like to start?
Well, shame on me. Maybe I hadn't enough time to speak with Russian people. I mean, people, ordinary people, because I'm an artist and I spend a lot of time in provincial theaters, especially to be closer to simple people. So it's quite difficult to speak with them, and also we have a problem with other generations. It's very difficult to speak with elder generations. This war is an effect of this problem, the conflict of those generations. So I don't know what do they think really. Maybe I had to be closer to them before, but now it's too late.
I'm not holding you responsible for this, but what I'm saying is that if from here the propaganda in Russia just seems so crazy, but we do understand that they have been sort of hearing and seeing that on TV for years and years. So maybe nothing is surprising people anymore.
Yes, I think the problem is not only in TVs and propaganda, because also they have to cancel all their life and regret a lot about that and do a big work on it. I don't know how would they handle it.
My media works on the far east of Russia, and I can judge. I can say something about the people's mood on far east of Russia. I see, of course. I think now the rest of the of people of Russia, they don't want the war. They want some kind of peace. Of course, there are aggressive, pro-patriotic people, like some kind of 8 or 10%, but they are too. They have very loud voice. They have very strong voice, so that is. So you can think that a lot of the dead people, they want this war, but that is not true. And of course, there are other people who are against the war, and they are strongly against the war. Some kind of maybe 15-20%, and the rest of people, they maybe don't have strong feelings against the war, but they see that all is going to the bad end, and they want to stop it. They, if they can, they want to stop it. But we should understand that now Russia is not even autocratic. It is a dictator's country with great repressive system. If we can remind the regimes like Russia, now, for example, in Nazi Germany, I've read the book of William Shirer just now, and he was a journalist who lived in Berlin in these years 1937, 1941. And he told that in 1941, people in Germany, in Berlin, a lot of people with whom he spoke, they said that they want this war stopped, but they couldn't do anything because there was a great repressive system. And we can remember a lot of other regimes like that, when people couldn't do because they don't have weapon. Yes, now, for example, in Russia you can't. That is very difficult to buy a weapon. But even you will buy that, what will you do with that? Alone, you can't organize any protests. You can't organize any demonstrations because all the opposition leaders are in the prison. All the social media are under the control. All big social media, like the others, are blocked, and that is really a problem even to organize something. So people, some people, some brave people, they go alone on the street with, and they stay with the banners and so on. But now it's impossible to organize great demonstrations.
But just finally, very briefly, before we swap again for this discussion, now you are in Finland and you are also part of this Artist at Risk program, and also Finnish PEN, Freedom of Speech organization, is helping you too. So anyway, from here, you have been able to do something, or what have you been doing? I mean, here in Helsinki.
here we are not protesting,
No,
but
I don't mean political artwork. just
artwork.
yours.
Yes, just I'm trying to do still my art. I'm working in Kapsaki Theater. Rotin Pihumis is still going, and also I found a cleaner work. So I'm learning the language. So I hope I can do something good here in Helsinki. Thank you for your welcome so much.
I continue working in my media, and we try to do something. I just was in Armenia and met other independent journalists, and we were from regions, and we were thinking. We thought what to do to organize people who are against Putin, against war and propaganda, because there will be elections in 2024, and we want to make this project more massive, more big, to explain people that this is also the way when you can go and set your position without punishment and hurt.
So there is hope somewhere. Thank you so much, Anis and
Thank you.
Andrei, and now we continue with Lesja. Kiitos. Tervetuloa, welcome. And we have only briefly met. I have been chatting with you by SMS and everything, but please do introduce yourself to the audience and stream.
My name is Lesja Kultšinska. I'm a curator from Kyiv and a visual culture researcher. Now at Artist at Risk residency in Helsinki.
Okay. What kind of art have you been curating? Can you tell something about the contents?
Well, contemporary art. So I was working with also like politically and socially engaged issues. So my approach is to address some, things that bothers people, not some, remote things, and try to influence the society somehow, or at least the minds or imagination of people.
Well, something that people are wondering all the time, or at least I am wondering all the time, is that how are things in Kiev now at the moment? I have heard from the correspondents that people are sort of trying to live as normal life as possible, at least in Kiev, I mean. But please tell us, how was it before you left, and when did you?
Actually, leave? I left the first day of the invasion because I have a little daughter. She was 4 years old. So when the war started, when we heard the sound of shelling in Kyiv, we left the same day. But I have my parents in Ukraine who stayed there, not in Kyiv. They are in Poltava. It's a smaller city to the south. And my brother stayed in Kyiv for a long time. He also is a journalist. He runs a media which is called Text.org.ua. And he stayed for a long time in Kyiv with his family. But now they also, after this blackout, they left. So I don't know, I cannot tell you from my own experience how things are going on in Kyiv. But what I know, I just before our conversation, I read an article by my friend and former colleague and curator also, Alexandra Pogrebnyak. She wrote an article about her own exhibition, I guess, because not so many people left in Ukraine, So if you do the show, you have to write also about it. And I was really touched. So she organized a show in her own apartment. She invited Ukrainian artists, not only Ukrainian, also some international artists. And she told that the idea that inspired her was that she and her husband, who is also curator and writer, they decided not to leave Kyiv when the war started, although they live in Kyiv, and it was really dangerous at the beginning because they have a lot of plants and they decided to stay to take care of them. And she wrote that she knows a lot of stories about this, that people stayed in dangerous places because they had to care of someone or something or plants or animals, non-human
there
things.
There is a cat over Armand's head, but that's not his cat, I have heard.
Yes, and I was thinking that this show, so she made this, she had the birthday on the day when invasion started, and she made the show on her birthday next year, and definitely for her it was a way to cope with all those, issues of staying inside the war situation. And I was thinking also about another show by another friend of mine, Katya Yakovlenko, who is also a curator and writer, and she also did an exhibition in her destroyed flat in Irpin, because her building, the building where her flat is, was destroyed, so it's not possible to live there anymore. But what is possible, when Irpin was deoccupied, she returned to Kiev and she made the exhibition there. And I was thinking about how art started, functioning during the war, that it becomes a tool of maybe a therapeutic tool, something that helps you to cope with this very traumatic reality. I myself did several shows here abroad, but for me it was also artistic practice was a way to cope with something that you cannot maybe even rationally grasp, But at the same time, it's very inspiring because it creates, still, despite of everything, people still create new artworks, they create new connections, they create new premises, new reasons for meeting, communicating, and, doing something. And it's something very touching for me about Kyiv.
Well, we just had the Russian people here, Russian journalist from Magadan and really, really far east. And then we had artist from St. Petersburg. And the thing is that people knew something could be happening. The reason why I'm going back here all the time is that one of the major points with PEN is that even if we praise freedom of speech, propaganda is not freedom of speech. It doesn't go under that umbrella because it's firstly it's this and falsified information, and it's to create violence. So if we say that we want to ban the sort of propaganda bots or trolls, they will not be defended by any PEN center, so don't worry about that. But anyway, we saw that happening. There was all that Nazi talk. It started just after the Maidan. In Russia. Did you realize that? Were you sort of following that?
So you asking me what is the question?
The Russian atmosphere towards Ukraine from the Ukrainian side.
After the Maidan, it was not about the atmosphere anymore. The war started immediately after the Maidan. So it was not just the talks, it was not just the propaganda, it was already a violence and military presence. So it was clear. Honestly, for people from Kyiv, for those who didn't go to the front, it was maybe, unfortunately, a lot of us didn't understand. We understood, but maybe we didn't feel what is going on really. And even there was a lot of, again, artistic voices from people who were originally from Donbass or Crimea, for example, who were shouting about the violence that is going on there. And they were even sometimes criticized because it seemed maybe too radicalized and so on, And only when the violence came to Kyiv, I now realize a lot of things that other people were trying to express, since 2014. So it was clear that the war is going on, but until you experience it, you cannot maybe really understand what does it mean.
Now that you are abroad, what kind of news releases do you follow up? Do you read news agencies?
Sometimes. Honestly, when I just left Kyiv, that was my main activity. I was reading news all the time, like constantly. But at some point, it became too difficult to function if you follow the news all the time, and especially when it's like a long-term, long-run situation. So my main news channel is my parents who are in Ukraine, actually. And sometimes I read some like general main news channels from Ukraine, like Ukrainian Truth or something like, or my brother's website.
And there are English. There are
of course,
some
in
sites
some,
in English.
yes, of course.
Kiev Independent and Ukrainska Pravda is
Ukrainian
also.
Truth, yes,
is-
exactly.
yeah.
Ukrainska Pravda, yes.
I met these guys a week ago in Perugia in a journalistic conference, and they are really good. They even have journalists on the front line,
Of course.
which is more than a bit scary. But hey, thank you, Lesja, and I hope to see you many, many times again, because you are new here. She just came here.
Thank
So
you.
Anyway, okay, and then Marita and Ivor.
Thanks.
Okay, you have to share this. So I will be sort of shouting because this is the bad microphone. That's a good microphone. Okay. Marita Muukkonen and Ivar Stradolski, I'm going to ask you now, because you are the guys behind Artists at Risk work here in Finland and elsewhere. So, well, you can share whatever you want to say, but how many residencies are you now running, or people in residencies, whatever way do you prefer to say this? But they are in many countries, and many of them are in Finland, but not too many. Yeah.
Iida, maybe I could start just by mentioning what we do in general so that we have an idea.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, so Artists at Risk started actually here in Helsinki in 2013. That's the date we give it, even though we were working with dissidents and kind of oppositional figures also from historical times in the Soviet Union before that. So it's been a long ride. It's about 10 years now. And over the course of the 10 years, we had like 26 hosting organizations in 19 countries until last year when suddenly Europe woke up to the fact that there are refugees, because there was a country right next door, in Europe, Ukraine, where there was just an outpouring of solidarity. And that was something which was unprecedented. We had applications from hosting institutions before we had applications from artists. So we had people in Germany and whatever, in Switzerland, France, saying, can we help? And I think our database is now 590 different individuals, organizations, museums, and whatever, trying to find some way to help us. In practice, I think we've moved something like 450 people in this time. So that means, we've had, I think, over 200 hosting organizations in average. So yeah, I'll just pass it to Marita in a moment. So it's been a very impressive year. Now,
Sorry, 450 this year.
450 is kind of, I think it's more in terms of Ukrainian artists who moved, and Russians and Afghans that we've helped in Afghanistan, and a few other globals that we moved from Kenya or safe houses in Zimbabwe and so on and so forth. Okay, but this year's been special, and now we're kind of refocusing again on the global south.
Yeah, also thanks a lot for organizing this event and for all the artists sharing their experience. Maybe it's good to mention that also in Finland our network has expanded since Russian occupation. We have now more than 25 residencies. It's in different cities and villages. We used to have 2, Helsinki and Porvoo, before the war started, but now we have anything from Hailuoto to Tohmajärvi to Tampere and so on.
And the Mariinsky Theatre guys in Loviisa, I love that especially.
Yeah, that's right. And we are also really happy that last year also, as Iida mentioned, that we started cooperation together with Finnish PEN, Finnish Journalist Union, Jokes Foundation, and also Helsingin Sanomat Foundation. And we have 2 first long-term residencies for journalists, and Andrei Grišin was the first resident. So also in Finland, our network is much stronger now. And of course, now it's basically our new focus. Actually, it's no longer new. Since last summer, we have built a hosting network within Ukraine. So we have now, it is basically 30 residencies with Ukraine. Not all of them are operational, but we are also concentrating on relocating people within Ukraine. Not everybody can leave or want to leave. So we are also building infrastructure there, and that's our focus also this year, that we will strengthen the network within Ukraine.
Well, just a few words about this artist at risk. We always in Finland think that Finland is so nice and open to take everybody here, but there have been really, really big difficulties with the bureaucracy. Can you say something about that?
We just had a discussion yesterday in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Finland about the lack of human rights visa to come to Finland. That's our biggest obstacle in relocating people elsewhere than from Ukraine. The figures is basically with relocations from Ukraine are really high because people can move. It is without the visa and we could relocate people. That's not normally the case. And of course, if there would be political will, it's artists and human rights defenders, it should be able to come to whole of EU area on human rights basis. We haven't managed to relocate one Afghan artist or journalist to Finland until today because there's no human rights-based visa. We even have funding to invite 2 people for 1 year each, but we can't get them visas. And that is really the biggest obstacle here, and it's really shameful that Finland is a member of UN, its Human Rights Committee and so on, and this is a country which doesn't welcome people even on the basis of human rights. And of course Finland is not the only country in the EU where this is lacking, and we are really advocating for that. We have still, it is basically more than 1,000 applicants, artists at risk in Afghanistan in really extreme conditions who we are trying to relocate.
That's quite a lot.
I could add something to that. We've been working on this for a long time, and it's not the first time that we've complained about it, actually, in public. And I think we should continue to make our voices heard as, the human rights community in Finland. It's very important. When we were given some kind of a thematic state prize a few years ago by the Arts Council, and at that point the minister was the far-right True Finns culture minister, and we refused to shake his hand. I wore a t-shirt that said "Stop Deportations." At that point Finland was putting people on airplanes to be deported, and we also have a program that helps artists who are being or in danger of being deported to stay in Finland. So we fund them in order for their papers to be in order. But it's really doesn't sync between the idea that Finland is this great, beautiful, human rights-oriented country and its actual policies. There's a total mismatch. And so I think we should really make that heard. Because there's this kind of self-deception in Finland about it being perfect and happy and transparent with one newspaper. That doesn't make sense. So that's my comment as a foreigner permanently resident in Finland.
That is a shame, and I can tell there is a number of people who are working on that. Definitely, that's really, we have to raise our voice. But about the residencies, I met you guys last summer in Paris. I came to celebrate the 14th of July in Paris, and you had just been opening, or you were building, fixing a new residency. Tell something about the residencies in Finland and elsewhere. What are they like? Because I don't think people understand that, how beautiful they can be or how various they can be. Some people come with their family, some come alone, some are tortured really badly, some are just having a short-term break.
The starting point for our work always has been, we come with art backgrounds. We have several backgrounds. We have also worked in politics and so on. But our starting point is to receive artists, curators, cultural workers as our peers and colleagues. It's basically, so therefore the core is that when people arrive, that they have a social context and they are linked to its other artists, art practitioners, if they wish so. And if they can't go back, we are also kind of trying to support them to find a next step, learn how to do grant writing, apply for grants, for example. In Finland, we have here our great Artists at Risk alumni. It's two visual artists from Iraq who are now locals here in Finland, Saddam and Holud, and they are standing on their own right as great professional artists. It's basically with a normal work permit because they are getting grants like every other artist and different kind of support internationally in here. So the core is that is basically, it's not just the keys and an apartment, but we also try to link artists, curators, see what the next step could be if they can't go back. Some of the residencies, like in Helsinki, Artists at Risk runs itself, like the one in Paris. But normally we partner with hosting organizations. So we have dance institutions, big museums, opera houses, dance institutions, and so on. And for example, in Finland, we work with Theatre Info Finland, Dance Info Finland. We have some colleagues here. It is basically dancers from Ukraine. So they do the professional networking. So we kind of partner up. It's not only us or one hosting organization normally. It's kind of a network of different professional institutions working together to find contacts for artists and kind of next steps and support.
Do you want to add something to that? Also, artists find you through your website, perhaps?
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, so if you want to spread the word, we have, I mean, it's on the front page of our website. There's a form you can fill in if you're an artist at risk. But also if you're an organization or have a free room or apartment or want to help in some fashion, you can apply to be a host. And that has been also very popular. And we're always doing open calls. We have an open call in, I think it's now 11 or 12 languages under the apply button on our homepage. We work in a strange way because in some you know, we want to centralize the place where artists have to go. So when you're a Ukrainian and there's a war at your doorstep, you don't have time to apply to Schloss Solitude in Germany and maybe, you know, something nice in Tampere and something nice in Paris. You just don't have time for that. You want to go to one place and say, I need help. And so it's centralized. But on the other hand, the hosting organization is super decentralized. And so we don't control every residency at all. So Helsinki and at the time Paris and Berlin and some places we've actually, you know, been hosting ourselves and our team has done it. But of the other hundreds, it's usually the artists in residency, they decide everything, they work with them, and it's a big network. They work very horizontally.
Thank you. Thank you, Ivor, and thank you, Marita. And now we have had this program for over an hour. So congratulations once again of your, was it taiteen, which prize? Valtiopalkinto, yes. They won a big prize last autumn and they have been so busy in Berlin and everywhere around Europe. So we haven't been able to raise a toast. So let's step down. We will now raise a toast for you and also for all the artists and journalists who have had to flee and risk their lives. So That's what I'm saying. You don't own this prize. It's yours too. But thank you so much, and thank you. Kiitos Aino Kallas seura and everybody. And we don't need to hurry away. We just stay here for a longer while. Thank you so much.